Welcome to this video on using Schoology Rubrics. There are multiple ways to create rubrics in Schoology. 1. Create a rubric as you create an assignment. 2. Create a rubric in the Grade Setup section. Or 3. Create a rubric in your resources. Important to note a couple of things. If you create a rubric through an assignment or by using the Grade Setup section, you will use that rubric only while using that course, unless you upload your course to resources later. When you create a rubric in your resources, you can use that rubric in all courses and will simply import that rubric to each course you use for it. To create a rubric as you create an assignment, go to your course and choose Add Materials. Then click Add Assignment. Create your assignments with explanations, attachments, links, and pictures as needed. Towards the bottom, choose the Scale Rubric option and change it to Create New. The rubric editing window will open and allow you to create a rubric that aligns with the assignment. To create a rubric in the Grade Setup section, choose the Grade Setup found on the left-hand side of your course page. Then, on the right-hand side, choose Rubrics and Add. This will allow you to build rubrics specific to the course that you can use later on for assignments. To create rubrics available for any of your courses, create a rubric in your resources. Navigate to the resources at the top of your Schoology page. Make sure you're in your personal resources and in your home area. Then choose Add Resources and pick Add Rubric from the drop-down menu. Creating a rubric will look the same regardless of which method you choose to use for rubric creation. You have the ability to name a rubric and customize it to your classroom needs. Schoology creates the first generic criteria for you. Change the criteria for your assignment. You can title each criterion as well as add descriptors. You also have the ability to add criteria by clicking on the Add Criteria button. You can edit your rubric in a few ways. One way is to add or remove columns for that criterion by clicking on the X or the plus sign. After adding or deleting points, you can also change the points value by hovering over the number until you see a box for editing. After you have multiple criteria rows, you then have the ability to drag and drop the order of the criteria. One feature Schoology has is the ability to add learning objectives to rubrics. To add a learning objective, click on the Add plus Learning Objectives button at the bottom of the Rubric Creation screen. You can choose to add from your own bank of learning objectives or add from state standards. Scroll and choose State Standards, then Minnesota. You now have choices that range from academic standards to social-emotional learning competencies and early childhood indicators on progress. Choose the category that pertains to your rubric. Once you have identified which standard to include, click on the standard. The learning objective will highlight green with a check mark when all appropriate steps have been completed. Click Add Learning Objective. The learning objective will become a criteria row in the rubric. You can then edit the grading scale and descriptors to align with the learning objective. Add in multiple learning objectives as needed. Once you are done creating the rubric, click Save. Currently, the only rubrics that you are able to add to assignments are ones that you build within an assignment or build within your course or have already imported from your resources, and they show up in your grade setup as rubrics. To import a rubric from your resources, click on Materials, click Add Materials, and click Import from Resources. Choose the rubric from your resources you choose to import. You know you have successfully imported a resource when a green bar shows at the top of your course screen. You're also able to view the newly added template in your Grade Setup Rubrics option. Now, when you go to add an assignment, that rubric will appear as an option in your Scale Rubric grading menu. Now that you have created an assignment with a rubric and allowed students time to complete the assignment, you will want to give feedback to students using the rubric. To use the rubrics, click on the assignment and choose the student you're going to assess and give feedback to. When you do PDFs, it's going to look a little different than when you use a Google Doc. For example, on a PDF, it may look like this because you have the ability to annotate on it as well. But if you go to the grade part right here, you can click and open your rubric, and all the rubrics and the criteria you attached will be there. And then you can click on whatever it is that you're assessing and giving, and you can also provide comments right there. And you can click Save, and it will total and give that feedback back to a student. Like I said, a PDF will look slightly different than when you are looking at a Google Doc. When you open something from Google, you will have a submissions button that you will need to click. And any students that have submitted work, it will now show up here, and you will be able to open the rubric and also assess them using this same page. Thank you for watching this video on rubrics in Schoology. If you have any further questions, please reach out to your technology integration specialist that services your school.